and welcome to my world. The drama continues. So we are attempting to do our show on the other phone system, the one that failed on us yesterday, but it looks like we've got it working today. Our backup failed today. It worked yesterday. The frustration level is almost through the roof. This is so inconsistent that it's making me a little crazy. For some reason today, it looks like this system really wants to cooperate. We're not getting the problems we had with it yesterday. So let me give you the phone number, and I will let you know if we get the app reset so you can use the call-in button. I'll let you know about that here in a little bit. But if you want to jump in right now, 855-950-3835. That'll get you in. It is a Thursday free-for-all. When we are done with our hour, we will go an hour today. When we're done with our hour, we will be followed up by Rolling Toe. So let's see how this works. All right, let me try to get back in the mindset of what I was going to talk about today. Okay. So looking at the news today, there were several headlines, and it fits right in with what I've been working on and talking about anyway. One of the things that's going on, and I'm not surprised that this kind of stuff always happens at the bottom. When we get into one of these bad markets, people start really becoming emotional about their business decisions. A lot of people do this anyway, and it's a really bad idea. You really have to try hard in business to separate out your emotions and work on logic and numbers, not emotions. I know it's not easy when things are going bad. I'm not surprised about where we are in the market at all. We've been talking about it for 6 years that this was coming. Get prepared. Remember, I open almost every show. Pay off your debt, save cash. Pay off your debt, save cash. This is coming. Get ready. And instead, we had people at the very top of the market. And we could see that the bottom was right around the corner, and they were out paying almost double what they should have been paying for trucks and trailers. Emotional decisions. They let emotions get the best of them. They saw those crazy high freight rates. They figured if everybody else was making money, they could do it too, and they got into the market, and most of those guys are already gone. If you got in at the top, most of those guys are just gone by now. The market is not getting better, and we're not even bouncing along the bottom anymore. We're starting to see drops. We had hoped we might have reached a bottom here, a floor, and it had stabilized. I don't think that's the case. Truck and trailer orders are down again. That's just not a good sign for the market. The economic signs are not good. But I am still saying this is the best time to start getting ready to get into the market. Now, what's happening, this emotional stuff, and we've seen it before, the two groups, let's just call them out because these are the two groups that have put it out publicly, the SBTC, that's James Lamb, the Small Business Transportation Coalition, and NOOA, the National Owner-Operator Association. They have joined forces, and it's absolutely ridiculous that they're calling for this. It's not going to happen, but it's a good time to learn some business lessons, why this is such a bad idea. This idea that they want this national minimum freight rate, that is anti-business. That's communist and socialist thinking to allow the government to set our rates. That's what this would be. The government is the only entity that could do this and enforce it. So it has to be a regulation, and that's what they want. Now, who in their right mind, what business owner would volunteer and ask the government to come in and set their rates for them? The only people that would do this are people who are too ignorant to do it for themselves, that just don't understand business. The only other reason I can think of is you don't believe that you could go convince your customers to pay you what you think you're worth, so you need the government to force them to do it. That this is so anti-business. But it's interesting that yesterday I posted, and by the way, these groups are growing. And they're growing because they play on people's emotions. If you go to these people who got into business not understanding business, and now they're failing, and you keep telling them, oh, this isn't your fault. The brokers are ripping you off. We need a minimum freight rate. Join us and we'll fight for it. That these groups are actually growing. There are enough people in the industry right now that ignorant that they support these kind of ideas. Now, yesterday, I posted that not only is this anti-small business, anti-business in general, socialistic thinking, it's really bad for the industry. And here's why. I didn't go into a deep explanation of this when I posted it yesterday, but just think about this one fact. We now know that fleets have an operating cost, an average operating cost of $2.28 a mile. That's break even. If that is their operating cost and all they are getting is $2.28 a mile, they can't make any money. They're just breaking even. That's a really bad place to be, but that's where they are with the rates today. Now, what type of freight usually moves at these cheap rates? Because that's the freight that will be impacted by this minimum. You know, part of the problem is they can't tell me how we're going to set this minimum. Somebody actually said it should be tied to the fuel price, which is a totally ignorant idea. But again, this whole idea is ignorant. So I have to assume a price floor, and the type of freight that will be impacted by this is the cheap freight that's out there already. The heavy stuff that moves all the time, water, beer, paper, there's all kinds of stuff, and it doesn't pay all that well. That's the kind of freight that typically gets moved by mega carriers with inexperienced drivers, and they do it just to fill in, and many times they're not making money on some of those loads. They use it to reposition. They use it to keep their drivers busy. That's the kind of freight that would be impacted by a minimum freight rate. Well, who does that benefit more? A mega carrier or an owner-operator who doesn't even want that freight, shouldn't be going after that freight, and can control their cost much better than a mega carrier can. This benefits the biggest carriers the most. You now give them a rate that's going to guarantee they make a profit on this cheap freight. They're going to gobble up all of that freight. And where are we? We have now made it much, much easier for those mega carriers to compete with us because we're subsidizing their rate. They don't have to work to lower their expenses. They can't. That's the struggle. The bigger you get, the harder it gets to control your expenses. You're just going to hand the mega carriers a gift. Look, here's guaranteed income. You'll never have to worry about running another mile, losing money again. This is such an ignorant idea, and yet it's gaining traction. It's so frustrating to watch people get on board with this as though it's a good idea. So I wrote this article, and it was interesting because in the article, I said exactly what I was just talking about. I posted that, beware of unintended consequences, and that this was going to benefit the mega carrier the most. So My title was, this is going to, my premise for the article that I posted yesterday was, this is going to benefit the mega carriers and beware of unintended consequences. So this morning I wake up and one of the freight analysts took that idea and wrote a really long-form article explaining, but he used my title, beware, he didn't steal it, but he used the words, unintended consequences, and his take on this was it was absolutely going to benefit the mega carrier far more than it could ever benefit the smaller carriers. So his title was Unintended Consequences, the Case Against Price Floors. And here's the interesting thing. Here's his quote. This is a freight analyst. And he picked up on my article yesterday, and then he explained it. And I'm not going to read the whole article. If you want to, you can go on to X and read it on my profile. But I do want to read a quote from him, because it's exactly what I'm talking about. It's exactly what we're working on right now. So listen to this. Quote, pushing for regulation and price controls will heavily, if not exclusively, favor large carriers. My recommendation, this is the analyst recommendation, my recommendation would be to focus on training, education, and a broader deployment of pricing tools for smaller fleets. That's easy to say, but difficult to do. A better understanding of operating cost and market dynamics would certainly be more helpful for small fleets than price controls. I'm hopeful that the industry will head in this direction as opposed to disaster. Now, let's break down his recommendations from a freight analyst. Let's think about this. My recommendation would be to focus more on training, education. CMC, does this sound familiar? Training and education about business. Yes, that's exactly what we're doing. And a broader deployment of pricing tools for smaller fleets. That's exactly what we're doing with truckstop.com. We are working on better pricing tools to help small carriers compete in the market and set rates that work for them and keep them competitive. He goes on to say that's easy to say but difficult to do. That's the only statement I would disagree with him on. Used to be difficult. It's not difficult anymore. We built the entire system. It's there. All you have to do is come to the CMC and follow the system we've put in place. Nothing could be easier. Then he goes on to say, a better understanding of operating cost. Oh, that sounds like our training and profit gauges, doesn't it? Interesting. And market dynamics, a better understanding of market dynamics would be much better for small fleets. That's what he's saying. We teach a better understanding of market dynamics. That's what our Monday show with Brent Hutto and truckstop.com is all about. Now, here's the funny thing. This analyst that picked up on my article from yesterday explained it and is now basically saying everything Let's Truck is doing is exactly what small fleets should be doing. He works for Truckstop's competitor, DAT. He wrote a great article, though, really great article, and had no problem kind of saying this is what you should be doing. If I didn't have such a great relationship with truckstop.com, I might hire him to market the CMC for us. It's exactly what he's doing here. He is telling you step by step, here's what you need to do to be competitive in this market. And everything he said, we have a program in place for already. So, when are you going to get signed up for the CMC? I don't know how many seats left. We might be down to about 50 now, I think, based on where we were the last time I looked. I'm surprised that it's not sold out already, really. But This is our first year. We're still trying to get the word out there. So you still can get signed up today. The quickest way to get signed up is go to truckingshow.com. Go to truckingshow.com. That'll take you to Matt's, the Mid-America Truck Show page. Click on events and education. You'll see the CMC right there. You can sign up and get registered online. We would love to see you there. We'll keep you updated on how fast those tickets are going. But head on over there and get signed up. It's going to be happening pretty quick here. We're excited about it. All right, we've got some phone calls. Let's hope that this works. Let's see. Let's go to Ohio. Gene, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin.
All right, it is working. I can hear you.
And you sound a little bit better now. It was very choppy while I was listening.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say anymore. I swear, I've been using technology for a long, long time. I've talked about it. I go way back on this stuff. And I have never been more frustrated. Actually, there was a time when I used to get this frustrated a lot with technology. That all ended when I stopped using Windows about 24 years ago. All that frustration went away, but I feel like it's back. I feel like I spend so much time just fighting with technology that is supposed to work and doesn't. It's just making me a little crazy.
It is still a little bit choppy yet, but it comes and goes.
Yeah, that's what I understand. So we're going to try to get through this.
Yeah. Well, before I get to what I called in for, I give you a book when you were back at Pittsburgh Power a couple years ago about electronics.
I did. You did.
And I was wondering if you have been caught up on that book. My grandson's getting interested in electronics, and see if you were...
help me out here. I've got bad news. If you tell me where I can replace that book for you, I will happily do it. I'll get you a new copy. I'll sign it. I'll do something. The last time I talked about the coach and one of the repairs that they did on one of my air conditioners, the first time I've ever been dissatisfied with something that shop did. And unfortunately, I was actually dissatisfied with several things they did. I think they're facing the same thing everybody else is. They can't get enough good qualified people. This shop has been so good to me from day one. Last time I took it in, 3 or 4 things that they fixed either weren't fixed or actually got worse. One of them was an air conditioner they replaced, and it leaked. They didn't run the drain lines properly, and it leaked into our slide and caused about $15,000 worth of damage in our slide, and also got your book.
Oh, well, it's I don't know where to find it. I got that when I went to school in 1992. So that's
if you do this, if you find any good book that you would like to use for that purpose, I will buy the copy.
Okay, I'll do some research and I'll forward that over to
All right, sorry.
Email over to support. Oh, that's fine. My grandson's just getting a little bit more interested, and I've been explaining it to him, but I need to go back and refresh my memory on
I'll bet.
Henceforth, why we have books.
Yeah, exactly.
But I sent you over an oil sample.
Okay, let's take a look at that. Ooh, it's kind of colorful.
It is.
All right, we've got a D13 turbo compounded.
Joe Morrow special.
We've got 150,000 miles new or is this new?
Yes, I believe that sounded correct. You were breaking up again. It's 150,000 mile.
Yeah, and we're on our fifth oil change or so here, fifth sample. We're on number 6, actually. And the oil itself has got about 52,000 miles on it?
Correct. It is the 3rd oil change. I changed the first one a little bit earlier. I think I dropped the first oil around 36,000 mile. And then I dropped it again at 97,000 mile. So the oil on it is... Now, I did add an additive to it, which when I was listening earlier, you were talking before about there's no additive should be added to oil. My base had dropped.
Oh, no.
My base had dropped down, and
That's
I put
fine.
PBN in it.
That is the one additive. I should have clarified that. That's something new. We never used to have to do that, but that's fairly common now. Part of the reason is we used to change oil at 15,000 miles. If we go back far enough, we used to change oil at 10,000 miles when I first got into the industry, the old mechanical engines.
Right.
Then we went to 15.
I do have the bypass.
Yeah, and then we started using bypass, and we could go longer. Now all of these engines are going longer. For some reason, I don't think they're putting as much base in these oils. They don't think we need it, but we have a lot of trucks now that are consuming the base before they get to their needed oil change. So adding base is fine. So that is the one additive that we're okay with.
I'd also added the FR3, which is, and Joel had recommended to add the FR3 in with it as well.
Yeah, this is one of the areas where Joel and I don't agree.
Right.
I just do not want any other additives in there.
This oil does have FR3 and a TBN in it.
Oh, the TBN is fine. The FR3 I'd rather not see in there. I don't think this is having an impact on this, but we're getting something really confusing here. I've talked about bearings many, many times. Our rod and main bearings. Now, here's another thing that can confuse this. We now have bearings on the market that aren't lead and copper. We have new bearings on the market now that we're going to have to figure out a new way to figure out if they're wearing out or not. I don't know if this truck has those or not. We'd have to go check that. But
yes,
we have an issue that looks like a bearing issue. So I will assume for now that you do have a traditional bearing in there with copper core and lead outer coating. So normally what we're paying attention to, we watch for lead. And if lead starts occurring, it's 99% chance it's coming from the rod and main bearings. And if it's excessive, we need to figure out why and then stop it. And if we don't, we fully expect that at some point we're going to start seeing copper. And when you do, at that point, we have to get in there and look at the bearings and see about replacing them. Here's why I'm confused, though. Your copper started to increase back on oil sample number 3, which was June of last year. And actually, it was your first sample, it looks like. No, maybe not, second. But prior to that, you had
first sample.
You had zero for copper.
The first sample you're seeing on there was just oil out of the bottle that I sent in.
Oh, got it.
So that was a baseline.
Got it, for the baseline. Got it. Okay. So your first
the one
sample.
before that was colorful. That was the break-in oil.
Yeah. We had copper at high levels for 3 samples, but we had no lead. So had you called me prior to this last sample, I would have said, don't worry about it. It's just leaching out of the oil cooler, and you don't have to do anything about it. Just ignore it. Except, all of a sudden, we got a big hit of lead, 26. That is indicative of bearing wear. And the copper is still elevated, not as high as it was before. So this is confusing. The old copper was probably leaching. Now we have lead, so now we have to be concerned about this. Here's what I would recommend doing. And the other thing is then we would go look, why are we getting this? Why are these bearings showing wear? And there's nothing in the oil that would give me any indication of why it's happening. It's not the oil causing it. I can tell you that.
There was a recommendation in the notes to have an additional test done.
Correct. Yeah. What that does, and it is a little more expensive. That's why they don't do this kind of testing unless we see an issue and we have to try to figure it out. So what they're going to do, we know there's lead and copper in there. They're going to do a much, much more sensitive test on that lead and copper, and sometimes that test can tell us exactly which part it's coming from. You know, this could be lead and copper from your compressor. It has bearings that are the same makeup. It could be copper. There might be some other copper part or lead part in there that normally doesn't wear. So this is a way to say, hey, look, instead of spending a bunch of money replacing bearings, let's see if we can dig a little deeper and find out exactly where that metal came from.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if I would do that yet. We're still pretty early into this, and there was, that break-in oil that might be confusing a lot of this. Did you change the oil after this last sample?
No, I did not. And now between this last sample and the prior sample, I did have the overhead run, so they were inside the case.
Well, that wouldn't give us copper and lead. That would give us silicon, and I'm not even really seeing, I am seeing a little problem with silicon. Actually, you've kind of had but again, that original break-in oil almost always shows high silicon levels, and it bouncing around a little bit. So here's what we need to do. You need to just change the oil, and then let's reset. Okay. And then let's do a sample. I would do the sample at about 20,000, somewhere between 15 and 20. We don't need to go all the way out to 25, but I'd like to see at least 15. And then let's see what this looks like. My next step after that, if it comes back with high lead and copper again, then I would say we got to drop the pan and look at the bearings.
I had been running the Diesel Extreme as for the fuel additive.
Okay.
And I switched back over to Catalyst. I live 40 miles away from Pittsburgh Power, so I get that there. I don't have a full understanding of what the Diesel Extreme is doing, where I have a better understanding of what the Catalyst does. And I know they do a similar thing, but what is the correlation between the two? I've been running the Catalyst for years.
Is Diesel Extreme a catalyst or an additive?
Diesel Extreme, it's Hot Shot Secrets, everyday diesel.
Oh, that's not a catalyst. That's an additive. It can't. It can kind of maybe sort of do some similar things, but it can't do what a catalyst does. A catalyst changes the physical structure of the fuel. An additive doesn't.
Yeah, and that's per my conversations with Joel and with Bruce. It's where I've been trying to, digest the difference. Joel recommends the Hot Shot Secret, and I've had a long stand. I was running the Catalyst in an N14 with great results.
We have identified that when these D13s and also the DD series, the Detroits, if you spec them right to be downsped properly and you drive them right, we don't see the need for the catalyst. They're burning clean, they're burning hot, they're holding heat in the emission system the way we want it, and they don't seem to benefit as much from the catalyst. But Joel has figured out that they benefit from a cetane boost, and I think that's what's in the everyday treatment is some cetane.
That's why I was just trying to play around between bouncing back and that's why I was letting you know I was running the Catalyst on this last oil sample.
Yeah, there's nothing in the sample that is because of the catalyst or the everyday treatment. So I'm not concerned about that. I am concerned about this copper and lead right now. So I would change it, get another sample between 15 and 20, and let's see what's going on.
Okay. And one more thing you can help me out with, which is would been part of your conversations lately. I've been on the edge about going to the CMC at the truck show.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not smart enough to own a truck. I actually have 8 now.
Okay.
And I have 5 of them on with Landstar now.
Got it. Okay.
And I have agents that have direct freight, and I have been doing well with the 5 trucks that we have on.
Good.
But we had 2 trucks. I actually got 2 of the Ploger trucks that
nice.
Were turned in. They're 2017. They're a VNM. Was it the 780? 76? Yeah, 780. It's got the D13. They're the 6x2s. They're doing well, but both of them, within about 3 months, I had to put a full set of injectors in each of them. It hit the finances pretty hard.
Yeah,
and
I bet.
I also know I have not done getting to where I am the recommended way. I have financed most of this equipment, so I have to keep the wheels turning to make the payment.
Hey,
and we are.
When I've talked about, financing, I've even talked about, I think everybody knows how I feel about factoring. The only time I ever see where factoring might come into play, I'm not a big fan of it. But if you're going to try to grow a fleet, where the odds of growing a fleet with cash are pretty slim. Because if you're not going to go out and buy newer, most people aren't, you're not going to go out and buy newer trucks that are good for drivers and start adding a bunch of them with cash. It's just not going to happen. When we grow a fleet, we're taking more risk, and we've got to usually go out and borrow money to do it. So, I expect that when you start to grow a fleet, you're going to start using some form of financing to do it, and just understand we have more risk when we do that.
Correct. And that's where I'm at the point now. We are very good at holding water. We're actually gaining small pieces on it. My concern is taking that week off to go to run down to the truck show rather than to run back and forth, because I'm pretty much going from Pennsylvania to California and back.
Okay. So when you look at your number, is there anybody you can put in your truck to take your spot that week?
There is not.
Okay.
Landstar, as you're probably familiar, is very hard to get a driver qualified.
Yeah, they are. I didn't know if you could move some people around or.
They have.
So what you've got to do. What you've got to do here, there's two ways to look at this. One, if you being off for a week puts your business at that much risk, then you've got a problem. You've got a big problem. Because lots of things could occur out of your control that would take you out of the truck for a week or a month. That is way too much risk. That all that has to happen is me to get sick, me to get injured. So, and all of a sudden, in a week, the company's in danger. So,
I've had two drivers down with the RSV, and they were down for one was a week and a half.
I get it.
2 weeks.
I get it. We could go through all the reasons why you're at this point. But if you're at this point, you've got to start making some really hard decisions. If all those things have occurred and it led us to the place where your income for a week is, if you don't have that income, you're worried about the bottom line in the business, that's a bad place to be.
And that's why I feel I need to come.
Right. That's what I was about to say. If we're at that place, you need this more than ever. So you got to kind of figure out how to get there and make this work.
I mean, I can make it happen. I just have to. And I've been on the fence one way or the other. It's kind of like having your 401k. You can't afford to do it. Well, you cannot afford to do it.
That's a good analogy. That you are at a place. Well, no, let me give you a choice. Either come to the CMC and make it happen, because I will give you all kinds of strategies to start turning this around, or decide that maybe this isn't the right time and I would start selling equipment.
I do have a truck. Well, I have two trucks for sale. One's kind of my backup truck, and that's my 2003 with my N14. If something would go down, I have that on reserve, but I have a 2013 Peterbilt that I've been trying to sell for the last year.
Here's another option. So have you heard me explain how the CMC works now?
Yes.
So it's this day-and-a-half class at Louisville in person, but then immediately we go into the virtual training for the rest of the year. Now, that original session at Matt's is going to be recorded, and it's going to go into the class material, so you'd be able to go watch exactly what I did and everything that happened at Louisville without going to Louisville, and then you're really going to get the bulk of the material in the virtual program.
Right.
So really, you don't need to come. And in this case, now, being in person, there is a difference. You do get more out of this kind of material in person. I get that. And that's why we're doing some in person. But there's no way we could ever afford None of us could afford for me to deliver all of this material in person. It's just not going to happen. But for you now, since there's a money crunch here and it makes more sense for you to just keep making money, we'll just skip this live. There's going to be a recording of it. You can go back and watch it, and then you have the rest of the year to learn all this stuff.
Yeah, I am a fan of in-person, and I know I get more out of it being there with the interactivity. And a couple other things I want to attend at the truck show, but
yeah,
with everything in play, I mean, I am gaining ground, recovering from our injectors and our maintenance issues that we had.
Good. Yeah, so think about it, but the good news is here you have two options. If you decide that it does make sense and you want to be there in person and that you're going to get enough value out of the CMC and the rest of the truck show, then go ahead and attend. If you're just worried and you'd rather, go make the money that week, then go ahead and do that. At least the CMC, you're really not going to miss all that much. Like I said, you're going to be able to go back and watch it all, and then we've got another year of this stuff. Right,
correct. Okay, well, very good. I'll put that in there, and I'll see what my schedule comes in, because I know I have to take my father to a VA appointment the first part of that week that the CMC or the truck show goes on.
Yeah.
And I'll have to be home for that, so maybe it could work together.
Yeah.
I'll just have to make that decision when the time hits me.
Yeah, sounds good.
Very good. Other than that, that's all I got. I thank you very much, and you have a good day.
You're welcome. Thanks for the call. I look forward to maybe seeing you at the CMC. Let's go to Kansas. Matt, welcome.
Oh, Kevin, can you put me back in the queue? I've got to unload really quickly.
I will put you back in the queue. I'm not sure how long I can wait for you, though, because we're about to wrap this up. I know we got a late start, but I want to make sure Rolling Toe can get in here, and I don't have a lot of calls today. I'm not surprised. We had such a disaster at the beginning. I know we lose people every time we do that, but I think I'm actually just going to turn this over to Rolling Toe here. Let me check with Angie. Angie, are we going to get Rolling Toe in here? Can somebody let me know? All right, got it. Yeah, Angie's getting Rolling Toe in. So, Matt, I'm going to bloviate here for a couple minutes, and then once we get those guys in here, I'm going to turn it over to them. So if I can come back to you, I will. If not, we'll have to try to do it again tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be able to do it if you want to call back in. But I'll take a couple minutes here while we are getting Rolling Toe lined up. I hope that maybe the programmers have something for me today. We can go test that. We've got to get a couple things out of the mix here. We have two pieces of software that are responsible for 100% of the problems we're dealing with right now. Our phone systems that we have, and then this other piece of software that is complicated and it's doing a bunch of stuff right now. It's one of the big weak points in our system, but our system does not use either one of these things. No phone system. We don't need this other piece of software that keeps kind of making me crazy. CMC, if you're not signed up, you really should. If you've ever thought about buying a truck and getting started, or you've got a truck and you want to get your own authority, or you've got your own authority, you want to get direct customers, you want to grow a fleet, all of these things are going to be covered. And we've got an entire year to be able to cover them. All right. The other thing we've got going on, today we have our business coaching at 3 o'clock Eastern time. So if you're not familiar with our coaching program, that is with me. It's not really one-on-one with me, but it's as close as we're ever going to get. It's coaching in a group. So we might have 30, 40, 50 people in there, whatever. The program's growing. And you submit more in-depth questions to me, and it's not like the radio show where you ask a question I have to answer on the fly. You submit questions ahead of time. You give me information. I go do the homework. I find solutions for you and recommendations, and then we talk about it. And then you go out and you try it, and you come back. So it's more ongoing. It's more in-depth. And it's a great way. I'm really enjoying it. We do coaching, group coaching in all areas: business, personal finance, relationships, building a fleet, your retirement accounts, your taxes. We also do health. All the health stuff, we do coaching where, again, I'll work very closely with you until we solve a problem. We've made this as easy and inexpensive as we possibly can. To be in the group coaching program is $72 a month, but you have no commitment beyond a month. If you want to sign up for a month, see what it's like, you sign up, I'll work with you as much as you need, and then next month, if you want, you can quit. And then you can go back 3 months later if you have a new issue you want to work on, idea, problem, come back, join again. You move in and out of the program anytime you want. We're not trying to lock anybody in. I only want you in the program if you're actually benefiting from the program. And if you're benefiting, then stay in. If you're not, or we've already solved your problem, then drop out. All right. I don't see the Beckett's here yet. I am going to try Matt again and see if he's there yet. Matt, are you ready yet?
I am. I can talk.
All right. What's on your mind?
So I wasn't able to have a good enough connection for the spaces yesterday, but
Okay.
there was a couple of things that stuck out to me. There was the whole topic of, and how these guys wanted to go back to before deregulation and what this minimum rate should be. Well, last winter, I was digging through some storage stuff, and I found the company manual that my grandfather got in 1975.
Wow.
Before deregulation.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting things in that was that it had all the rates in there.
Right.
And for overnight trips, it was paying 15 cents a mile. I typed that into just Google to an inflation calculator, and it comes out to the same 86 cents that was mentioned at the mega carriers haul. So if they want to have deregulation rates, then maybe they should just go out and haul for 86 cents.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's pretty cool to see that from back then.
And yeah, it was surprising to find it.
Yeah.
The one other thing that I wanted to bring up, and I'm not sure if you ever mentioned it or not, but the guy that runs the NOOA or NOAA or whatever it is, NOOA, have you ever seen the first interview that he did on the Trucker Maya show on YouTube?
No.
You might go back and watch that, because turns out he was a bed bugger up until the freight really got good, and then he switched over to freight, and then started to get upset once all the COVID money started to disappear.
So it's pretty incredible that, when I think of associations, professional associations, and I belong to several of them, not just in trucking. Not really anymore. I've kind of let a lot of them go. But I used to belong to a tax association and a financial planning association, and I do still belong to a couple of health associations. I think of the first thing I want out of an association is education. Teach me how to do this better. Share best practices. That's what members in associations do. They find a better way to do something, they share it. And yeah, we're sharing it with our competition. I believe in that. It makes us all better.
The whole point is to associate with other people that are doing as well or better than you. That way you can learn from each other.
Exactly, right. It makes everybody better. I look at these two groups, And they are a mess. Financially, they're a mess. The SBTC, I posted their financial numbers because they're a nonprofit and they are required to put their numbers out publicly. So I went and found their numbers. That organization is a dumpster fire. They made $270,000. They made $270,000 gross, not even as much as what most of their members make with one truck. And the director, James Lamb, gets $75,000 of that $270,000 to run the place. What the hell's he doing? I don't even know what they offer. And the attorney got like $50,000 or $60,000 out of $270,000. What could you possibly need to pay an attorney that much money for? I got thinking about this. I went back and did some math. This is pretty rough math, but I think with my time in the trucking industry with trucks when I had a fleet, and then selling that and moving on to what I do now, the radio show, the software, all this other stuff, I have generated somewhere probably my entire time in the trucking industry about $35 to $40 million worth of revenue. It's fairly significant. Now, it's over a pretty long period of time, too, but it's fairly significant. But here's what I got thinking about. He makes this SBTC generates $270,000 in revenue, and they needed to pay an attorney $50,000 for something. I'd love to know what. On my $35 to $40 million worth of revenue, I went back and looked. I think I might have spent about $5,000 that whole time on attorneys. I don't even understand. So they're a dumpster fire. Their financials look horrible. Why would I go to this group to tell me how to or help me run my business better? I wouldn't. Then you look at NOOA. And every time I see one of their officers posting, they're talking about how bad they are doing in business, and they're recommending all kinds of screwy stuff. Why would I ever want to belong to or listen to these groups?
What you look at enough of.
I know. So that's what I mean by these two groups. The only thing they can do is exploit people's ignorance and get them to try to make emotional decisions about this stuff. That's the only reason you would join a group like either one of these.
Yeah, they're just exploiting people's emotions.
Yeah, it's
like
just
the NOOA, like they have their own approved dispatching services and factoring companies, and it's just like, man, that is not the way to get ahead.
No, and I you know how I feel about factoring. And I think the factoring company they picked is really kind of scummy because there's a new trend in factoring, and it's a really bad idea. And their factoring company does it. Their factoring company will also give you a fuel card. Now, it doesn't have any real discounts, so I don't even know what the point of it is, but they start mixing up their factoring fees with their fuel discounts. And they do it to hide the numbers. There is no other reason to mix these two things up. It doesn't make any sense at all. And they're doing it, and somehow people think it's a good thing. You don't know what they're charging you for factoring anymore, and you don't know how much you're really paying for your fuel.
Well, how much those guys hate the concept of knowing your numbers.
Oh. Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me that they'd want to hide their own.
The other one that gets me, that they keep trying to hammer me on, that damn Rutherford thinks that just building relationships is going to solve everything. Actually, it kind of does. Everything they complain about, we've already solved just by building good relationships. But they don't think that that's a thing.
You'd be so proud of this. Right before I called into the show, so whenever I got into my truck, I had turned on the show just as you started, but just before that, I was in the office of the main broker that I use, and met everybody in there, met the accounting, shook hands.
Excellent.
Very good relationship with
Love that.
And haven't had a problem with them.
Yeah, excellent. All right. Hey, Matt, I see we've got the guys from Rolling Toe in here. I'm going to cut you loose and turn this over to them. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Be safe, be profitable, Be fit and healthy. Always do the hard work and master the journey.